The ships came on a Tuesday morning in June. Marcus Cole was teaching history to his 11th grade class when the lights flickered and died. Every student pulled out their phones at the same time. Marcus watched their faces change from confusion to terror. He walked to the window and looked up at the sky. What he saw made his heart stop beating for a moment. Massive black ships hung in the air above Detroit. They were bigger than anything Marcus had ever seen. Each one was shaped like a triangle with smooth, dark metal that seemed to eat the sunlight. There were hundreds of them, blocking out the sun and casting the entire city in shadow. The students started screaming. Marcus told them to stay calm, but his own hands were shaking. Within hours, the whole world learned that these ships were everywhere. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Cairo, Sydney. Every major city on Earth had these alien vessels floating above them. The military tried to fight back. Marcus watched the news with his wife Sarah and their 5-year-old daughter, Lily. Fighter jets flew toward the ships and fired missiles. The missiles hit some kind of invisible wall and exploded harmlessly. Then the ships fired back with beams of blue light. The jets disappeared like they were never there. The president went on television and asked everyone to remain calm. He said the government was trying to communicate with the visitors. 30 minutes later, the aliens sent their own message. Every screen on Earth, every phone, every computer, every television showed the same thing. A tall creature with gray skin and silver eyes stared at humanity. He had no hair, no nose, just 2 small slits where a nose should be. His mouth was thin and cruel. He wore armor that looked like liquid metal. He called himself Zyrith, High Commander of the Velthari Empire. He spoke in a language that sounded like cracking ice, but somehow everyone understood his words perfectly. The translation appeared in their minds like magic. Zyrith told humanity that they were now property of the Velthari. Earth would serve the Empire. Humans would work, obey, and be grateful they were allowed to live. He called humans primitive insects. He said human civilization was like a child playing with sticks and rocks. He laughed at human weapons, human art, human history. All of it was worthless to him. Marcus held Sarah's hand tight as they listened. Lily was asleep in her mother's arms, unaware that her world had just ended. The invasion was fast and brutal. Velthari soldiers came down from the ships in smaller vessels. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with the same gray skin as their commander. They moved faster than any human could. Their weapons fired bolts of plasma that burned through concrete and steel. Human armies tried to fight. Tanks rolled through city streets. Soldiers fired everything they had. Nothing worked. The Velthari had shields that stopped every bullet, every bomb, every weapon humans possessed. It was like throwing stones at the sun. In 3 days, every government on Earth surrendered. There was no choice. Fighting meant death. The Velthari set up command centers in every major city. They appointed human administrators to manage the population, but everyone knew who was really in charge. Curfews were established. Anyone outside after dark was shot. Anyone who spoke against the Velthari was taken away and never seen again. Marcus tried to keep life normal for Lily. He still told her bedtime stories. He still made her pancakes on Sunday mornings. But Sarah could not pretend. She had been a journalist before the invasion. She could not stay quiet while aliens ruled her world. She started meeting with others who felt the same way. They called themselves the Resistance. They made plans. They gathered weapons. They believed they could fight back. Marcus begged her to stop. He told her it was suicide. He told her to think about Lily. Sarah kissed him and said she was thinking about Lily. She said she could not let her daughter grow up as a slave. She had to try. On the night of their 6th wedding anniversary, Sarah went to a resistance meeting in an abandoned warehouse. Marcus stayed home with Lily. He was reading her a story about a princess when he heard the explosions. He ran to the window and saw fire rising from the direction of the warehouse. His phone rang. A voice he did not recognize told him that Sarah was dead. The Velthari had found the meeting. They had killed everyone inside. Marcus fell to his knees. He could not breathe. He could not think. Lily came out of her room and asked where Mommy was. Marcus looked at his daughter's innocent face and felt his heart break into a million pieces. He held her close and told her that Mommy had gone away. He told her that Mommy loved her very much. He did not tell her the truth. He could not. The months that followed were dark. Marcus stopped teaching because the schools were closed. He and Lily moved to an underground shelter with hundreds of other survivors. They lived in tunnels beneath the city, hiding from the aliens above. Food was scarce. Clean water was precious. But they survived. The Velthari did not just conquer. They humiliated. They forced humans to tear down their own monuments and build new ones, celebrating the Empire. They made humans kneel when Velthari soldiers walked past. They broadcast videos of captured resistance fighters being tortured and killed. They wanted humanity to feel small, weak, and hopeless. Commander Zereth appeared on screens regularly to mock his new subjects. He showed humans their own history and laughed at it. He called the pyramids a joke. He called human music noise. He said humans were the lowest species the Velthari had ever conquered. Other races had at least provided some challenge. Humans had been boring. Humans were insects pretending to be intelligent. Marcus watched these broadcasts with dead eyes. The anger inside him had turned to ash. He thought only about keeping Lily safe. He thought only about surviving one more day. He told himself that fighting was pointless. He told himself that hope was a lie. He told himself that the best thing he could do was accept reality and protect his daughter. But late at night, when Lily was asleep, Marcus would lie awake and remember Sarah's face. He would remember her courage. He would remember how she refused to bow to the invaders. And somewhere deep inside him, buried under all the grief and fear, a tiny spark of rage still burned. He tried to ignore it. He tried to smother it. But it would not die. The Velthari had taken everything from humanity. They had taken their freedom, their dignity, their hope. They had taken Sarah from Marcus and a mother from Lily. They thought humans were broken. They thought humans would never fight back. They thought wrong. Marcus did not know it yet, but his story was just beginning. The broken teacher who had given up on everything was about to become something else. Something the Velthari had never expected. Something that would change the course of the war and the fate of two civilizations. But that would come later. For now, Marcus Cole held his sleeping daughter in a dark tunnel beneath a conquered city and tried to forget that he had ever known how to hope. 6 months passed under Velthari rule. The world above ground had changed completely. Human cities now had alien structures rising from them like metal trees. Velthari patrol ships flew through the streets day and night. Soldiers walked among humans, their weapons always ready. Anyone who showed disrespect was punished. Anyone who resisted was killed. Marcus had built a small life in the underground shelter. He taught the children who lived there. He helped repair water pipes and electrical systems. He became someone the community depended on. But he never joined the resistance fighters who sometimes passed through. He always said no when they asked. He had Lily to think about. He could not risk leaving her alone. The shelter held about 300 people. They lived in old subway tunnels that the Velthari had not found yet. They had generators for power and filters for water. They grew mushrooms and other plants that did not need sunlight. It was not a good life, but it was life. Lily had grown in these 6 months. She was almost 6 now, and she had learned to be quiet. She knew that loud noises could bring danger. She knew that some questions had no answers. She rarely asked about her mother anymore. Marcus was grateful for that, even though it broke his heart. One night, a woman came to the shelter. Her name was Elena Vasquez. She was tall and strong, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She had been an army captain before the invasion. Now she led one of the largest resistance cells in the region. She came looking for soldiers. Elena gathered the shelter residents and spoke to them. She told them that the resistance was growing. All over the world, humans were fighting back. Yes, the Velthari killed them. Yes, the victories were small. But every destroyed supply convoy, every sabotaged weapon depot, Every dead alien soldier proved that humanity was not finished. She told them that surrender was slow death. Fighting was the only way to live with dignity. Marcus stood in the back and listened. He admired Elena's courage. He respected her conviction. But he still said no when she asked him to join. He walked away and went to check on Lily. Elena found him later, sitting alone in a dark corner of the tunnel. She sat down next to him without asking permission. She told him she knew about his wife. She told him Sarah had been a hero. She told him that Sarah's sacrifice had meaning. Marcus told her that Sarah's sacrifice had left his daughter without a mother. He asked what meaning there was in that. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she told Marcus something that changed everything. She said her people had been studying the Velthari for months. They had captured equipment, interrogated prisoners, analyzed everything they could find. They had discovered a weakness. The alien shields that stopped all human weapons had a flaw. When the shield absorbed a big enough impact, it needed 3 seconds to recharge. 3 seconds where the alien was vulnerable. 3 seconds where a human could kill. Marcus listened, but said nothing. 3 seconds was not much. 3 seconds against soldiers who moved like lightning and saw in the dark. 3 seconds was almost nothing. But it was something. It was the first something anyone had found. Elena told him to think about it. Then she left him alone with his thoughts. 2 weeks later, the Velthari announced something they called the Harvest Protocol. Marcus was in the shelter's common area when the broadcast came through. Commander Zereth appeared on the screen with his cruel smile. He said the Empire had been too generous with Earth. Too many humans were unproductive. Too many consumed resources without providing value. This would change. The Harvest Protocol was simple. All humans would be evaluated. Those who could work would work. Those who could not would be relocated. Relocated meant killed. Everyone knew it. The categories of unproductive humans were clear. The elderly over 60, the disabled who could not perform labor, and children under the age of 10. Marcus felt ice spread through his body. Lily was 5. The shelter erupted into chaos. Parents screamed and grabbed their children. Old people sat in shock, knowing what was coming. Marcus picked up Lily and held her so tight she complained. He told her everything was fine. He told her nothing bad would happen. He lied to her face while his mind raced for solutions. 3 days later, Velthari soldiers found another shelter across the city. Marcus heard the stories from survivors who escaped. The soldiers had lined up the children and marched them into transports. Parents who tried to stop them were shot. The children were never seen again. The people in Marcus's shelter lived in terror. They reinforced their hidden entrances. They posted guards at all times. They made plans to scatter if the aliens came. But everyone knew the truth. If the Velthari wanted to find them, they would be found. It was only a matter of time. Marcus stopped sleeping. He sat by Lily's bed every night, watching her breathe, imagining alien hands taking her away. He thought about running, but there was nowhere to run. He thought about hiding, but there was nowhere to hide. He thought about fighting, but he had told himself fighting was pointless then. One night, he heard screaming from the tunnel entrance. He grabbed Lily and ran toward the emergency exit. But before he reached it, he saw them. 2 Velthari soldiers had found the shelter. They were dragging a young boy toward the entrance. The boy's mother was on the ground, bleeding from a wound in her chest. She was still reaching for her son. Something snapped inside Marcus. He did not think. He did not plan. He just moved. He put Lily down and told her to hide. Then he picked up a metal pipe from the ground and ran at the soldiers. The first soldier saw him coming and raised his weapon. Marcus threw himself sideways as a plasma bolt burned past his head. He swung the pipe with all his strength and hit the soldier's arm. The alien stumbled. Marcus swung again and hit the weapon, knocking it away. The second soldier turned, releasing the boy. Marcus knew he had seconds to live, but then something happened that he did not expect. The first soldier's shield flickered. It made a sound like breaking glass. And for just a moment, Marcus saw the gray skin underneath without any protection. He did not hesitate. He drove the pipe forward like a spear. It went through the soldier's throat. Purple blood sprayed everywhere. The alien fell. The second soldier fired. Marcus felt burning pain in his shoulder. He fell to the ground. The soldier walked toward him, weapon raised for the killing shot. Marcus looked up and saw death coming. Then a gunshot rang out. The soldier's head exploded. Behind him stood Elena Vasquez, holding a rifle that glowed with strange blue light. A weapon made from captured alien technology. Elena helped Marcus to his feet. She looked at the dead soldiers and then at him. She asked if he still thought fighting was pointless. Marcus looked at the boy, running to his wounded mother. He looked at the direction where Lily was hiding. He thought about Sarah and everything she had died for. He told Elena he was ready to join the resistance that night. As a medic treated his wound, Marcus made a promise to himself. He would not hide anymore. He would not wait for death to come for his daughter. He would become the weapon that humanity needed. He would make the Velthari pay for everything they had taken. The broken teacher was gone. Something harder and sharper had taken his place. Something that would fight until his last breath. Something that would show the aliens they had made a terrible mistake. When they mocked the human race, Marcus trained every day for the next 2 months. Elena's resistance cell had a hidden base in the ruins of an old car factory. Their former soldiers taught recruits how to fight the Velthari. Marcus learned things he never thought he would need to know. How to move without making sound. How to kill with a knife. How to shoot weapons that humans had never built. How to stay alive against enemies that were faster and stronger. The training was brutal. Marcus came home to Lily every night with new bruises and cuts. She would touch his face gently and ask if he was okay. He would smile and tell her he was fine. He would tell her Daddy was learning to protect her. She believed him because she trusted him. That trust gave Marcus strength when his body wanted to quit. The resistance had scientists who studied everything they could capture from the Velthari. A Korean engineer named Jin Park was the smartest of them all. Jin had taken apart alien weapons and shields and communication devices. He understood how they worked better than anyone on Earth. He had built new weapons from the scraps. Rifles that could punch through weakened shields. Grenades that disrupted alien electronics. Bombs that could bring down Velthari patrol ships. Jin showed Marcus his latest creation. It was a small black disc that fit in the palm of his hand. Jin called it an EMP grenade. When activated, it released a pulse of energy that would shut down any electronics nearby, including Velthari shields. The shields would go down for exactly 3 seconds before backup systems activated. 3 seconds was not much, but 3 seconds was enough to kill. Marcus practiced with the team every day. They ran drills over and over. Throw the grenade, count the seconds, attack. Throw, count, attack. They practiced until their muscles memorized the movements. They practiced until they could do it in complete darkness. They practiced until 3 seconds felt like an eternity. Elena gathered her best fighters one evening and told them about a new mission. Intelligence had come from a spy inside the Velthari command structure. Commander Zereth himself would be coming to Earth's surface. He would attend a ceremony in the ruins of Washington, D.C., captured resistance leaders from around the world, be executed in front of cameras. The broadcast would be sent to every screen on Earth. It was meant to crush the last hope of human resistance. But it was also an opportunity. Zereth never came to the surface. He always stayed safe on his flagship in orbit. This was the first time he would be vulnerable. If they could kill him, everything would change. The Velthari command structure was rigid and hierarchical. Every order came from Zereth. Every decision needed his approval. The sub-commanders had never learned to think for themselves. If Zereth died, the chain of command would break. Confusion would spread. The alien forces would be paralyzed while they waited for orders that would never come. It might give humanity the chance they needed to fight back. Elena asked for volunteers. She was honest with them. She said this was probably a suicide mission. The ceremony would be heavily guarded. Getting close to Zereth would require passing through hundreds of soldiers. Even if they succeeded, getting out alive was almost impossible. She said anyone who came should make peace with death first. Marcus volunteered immediately. He did not hesitate. He did not think about the danger. He thought about Lily growing up in a world ruled by monsters. He thought about Sarah dying for a chance at freedom. He thought about every child taken in the Harvest Protocol. He thought about the alien commander's mocking smile. He wanted to wipe that smile away forever. 7 others volunteered with him. Jin Park joined to make sure his weapons worked correctly. Amara Okonkwo, a Nigerian woman whose entire village had been killed, joined because she had nothing left to lose. There was David, a former British Special Forces soldier. There was Yuki, a Japanese doctor who had lost her family. There was Pavel, a Russian mechanic who could fix anything. There was Maria, a Brazilian fighter who had killed more aliens than anyone in the Resistance. And there was Thomas, an American teenager who had watched his parents die and wanted revenge. 8 people to kill the most powerful being on Earth. 8 people against an army. It was madness. But it was also hope. They spent weeks planning every detail. They studied maps of Washington, D.C. They memorized guard positions and patrol routes. They planned 3 different approaches and 4 different escape routes. They prepared for everything that could go wrong. They knew most of it would go wrong anyway. The night before they left, Marcus went to say goodbye to Lily. She was staying in the shelter with a woman named Rosa, who had promised to care for her. Marcus sat by his daughter's bed and watched her sleep. She looked so small, so innocent. She had already lost her mother. Now she might lose her father, too. Marcus recorded a video message on a small device. He told Lily how much he loved her. He told her about her mother and how brave Sarah had been. He told her that some things were worth fighting for, even if fighting was scary. He told her that being brave did not mean not being afraid. It meant being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. He told her to be strong and kind and never give up hope. He told her that no matter what happened, he would always be with her. Then he kissed her forehead and walked away. He did not look back. He could not look back. The team traveled for 3 days to reach Washington. They moved at night and hid during the day. They avoided Velthury patrols and human collaborators who would report them. They ate cold food and slept in shifts. They did not talk much. Each of them was lost in their own thoughts. Each of them was preparing to die. On the final night, they gathered in the basement of a destroyed building just 2 miles from the ceremony site. Alina had stayed behind to coordinate other attacks around the world. Resistance cells in every country would strike at the same time. The goal was to draw Velthury forces away from Washington. To create chaos that would give the strike team a chance, Marcus checked his weapons one last time. A rifle made from alien technology, a pistol loaded with armor-piercing rounds, 3 EMP grenades, a knife forged from Velthury metal that Jin had made specially for him. It was the strongest blade on Earth. Jin gave them all final instructions. He told them the EMP grenades had to be thrown within 10 feet of the target to work. He told them the 3-second window was exact. Not 3.5. Not 2.5. Exactly 3. He told them to count in their heads and trust the count. Amara checked her sniper rifle. David reviewed the approach one more time. Yuki prepared medical supplies she hoped they would not need. Pavel blessed himself in Russian. Maria sharpened her knife. Thomas stared at a photo of his parents. Marcus thought about Sarah. He thought about Lily. He thought about every human who had suffered under Velthury rule. He thought about Commander Zereth and his mocking laughter. Tomorrow, one way or another, that laughter would end. The team did not sleep that night. They sat together in the darkness and waited for dawn. 8 humans against an empire. 8 hearts beating with fear and determination. 8 souls ready to sacrifice everything for a chance at freedom. When the first light appeared in the sky, they picked up their weapons and moved out. The battle that would change history was about to begin. The ceremony was held at the National Mall. In front of the ruins of the Capitol building, the Velthury had destroyed most of Washington during the invasion, but they had left enough standing to make a point. Human monuments to democracy and freedom now served as backdrops for alien propaganda. A massive platform had been built for the event. Commander Zereth sat on a throne of black metal at the center. Around him stood his personal guard, 20 soldiers in special armor that was even stronger than normal Velthari protection. Below the platform, thousands of humans had been forced to attend. Velthari soldiers lined the edges, weapons ready to punish anyone who looked away. On the platform, 12 resistance leaders knelt in chains. They had been captured from cells around the world, men and women who had fought back against the invasion, heroes to humanity, criminals to the Empire. They would die today as a lesson to anyone who still dreamed of freedom. Marcus and his team approached from the east. Moving through the rubble of destroyed buildings, the global attacks had begun an hour ago. Reports came through their communication devices. Explosions in London, fighting in Beijing, a Velthari supply base destroyed in Cairo. The aliens were responding, sending troops to deal with the threats. But there were still hundreds of soldiers at the ceremony. Still enough to kill the strike team 10 times over. They reached their first checkpoint. 2 guards stood watching a side street. David moved first, silent as a shadow. He came up behind the first guard and used his knife to find the gap between helmet and armor. The alien fell without a sound. Maria took the second one the same way. They dragged the bodies into a broken building and kept moving. The team split into 3 groups as planned. Jin and Pavel would create a distraction at the south entrance. Amara and Thomas would find high ground for sniper support. Marcus, David, Maria, and Yuki would push toward the platform. Jin's voice crackled in their ears. He was in position. On his signal, he detonated bombs hidden in 3 Velthari vehicles. The explosions shook the ground. Soldiers turned toward the sound. Officers shouted orders. Chaos spread through the security perimeter. Marcus and his group moved fast. They crossed an open plaza, staying low behind rubble. A patrol appeared in front of them. For soldiers, too many to take silently. David threw an EMP grenade. The pulse hit the soldiers and their shields flickered. 3 seconds. Maria and Marcus fired together. 4 aliens fell. They did not stop to confirm the kills. They kept running. Amara's voice came through the communicator. She had eyes on the platform. Xerath was still on his throne. The guards were nervous but holding position. The executions had been delayed because of the explosions. The resistance leaders were still alive. There was still time. Marcus could see the platform now. It was 200 meters away, surrounded by soldiers. Between him and Xerath stood an army. An impossible distance. An impossible mission. But he kept moving anyway. Then everything went wrong. A Velthari officer spotted them from a watchtower. Alarms screamed across the area. Spotlights swung toward their position. Plasma fire erupted from every direction. David was hit in the leg and went down. Maria grabbed him and dragged him behind cover. Yuki started treating the wound, but the blood was coming fast. Jin's voice was frantic. He and Pavel were pinned down. They could not move. Thomas reported that soldiers were climbing toward his position. Amara said she would cover him, but she could not hold them off forever. Marcus looked at the platform. Xerath had stood up from his throne. The alien commander was watching the chaos with interest, not fear. He looked amused. Even now, even with bombs exploding and humans fighting back, he was not worried. He believed he was untouchable. Marcus made a decision. He told the others to fall back. He told them to get out if they could. David cursed and told him not to be stupid. Maria said they came together and they would leave together. But Marcus was already running. He sprinted toward the platform. Plasma bolts flew past him like angry stars. One grazed his arm, burning through his sleeve and searing his skin. He did not stop. He jumped over bodies and dodged through debris. He moved faster than he had ever moved in his life. A soldier stepped in front of him. Marcus did not slow down. He threw his last EMP grenade at point-blank range. The shield died. He drove his knife into the soldier's chest and pushed past without breaking stride. Amara saw what he was doing. Her voice was calm in his ear. She told him she would clear a path. Her rifle cracked once, twice, 3 times. 3 soldiers near the platform fell with holes in their heads. Marcus reached the edge of the platform. He climbed over the barrier. A guard swung at him with a weapon. Marcus ducked under the blow and slashed the guard's throat. Purple blood sprayed across his face. He kept moving. Xyrath turned to face him. For the first time, Marcus saw surprise in those silver eyes. The alien commander had not expected a human to get this close. He had not expected any human to fight through his army. He had underestimated his prey. The personal guards raised their weapons. Marcus knew he had no chance against 20 elite soldiers, but he did not need to beat all of them. He just needed to reach one. He threw himself at Xyrath. A plasma bolt hit his back, and he felt fire spread through his body. Another hit his leg, and he stumbled. But momentum carried him forward. He crashed into the alien commander, and they both fell to the ground. Xyrath was strong. Stronger than any human. His hands closed around Marcus's throat and squeezed. Marcus could not breathe. His vision started to go dark. But his hand found the knife at his belt. The blade Jin had forged from Velthri metal. The strongest blade on Earth, he drove it upward, with everything he had left. The knife punched through the gap in Xyrath's armor at the throat. It went in deep. Purple blood poured over Marcus's hand. Xyrath's grip loosened. His silver eyes went wide. He looked at Marcus with something that might have been shock, or respect, or disbelief. He whispered something in his language. Later, translators would say his words meant impossible. You are only human. Marcus looked into those dying eyes. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. He could barely breathe, but he smiled. That is exactly what we are, he said. Xyrath's head fell back. His eyes went empty. The High Commander of the Velthri Empire was dead. For one moment, the entire battlefield went silent. Every soldier, every prisoner, every human in the crowd stared at the platform. They stared at the impossible thing they had just witnessed. A human, a single, ordinary human, had killed an alien god. Then the chaos truly began. The image of Commander Xyrath dying spread across the world in minutes. Resistance hackers had prepared for this moment. They broke into the Velthri broadcast system and sent the footage to every screen on Earth. Billions of humans watched an alien emperor bleed purple blood and fall. Billions of humans saw that the invaders could die. In the underground shelters, people wept with joy. In the work camps, prisoners raised their fists in the air. In cities controlled by aliens, crowds gathered in the streets and chanted the name they had learned. Marcus Cole, the man who killed Xyrath. The human who proved that hope was still alive. The aftermath at the ceremony was bloody chaos. The personal guards tried to kill Marcus where he lay on the platform, but the crowd of forced spectators surged forward. Thousands of humans rushed at the soldiers, using their bodies as weapons. Most died in the first seconds, but their sacrifice bought precious time. Amara kept firing from her high position. Every shot took down another guard. Thomas had fought his way free and was helping civilians escape. Jin and Pavel broke from their position and drove a stolen Velthri vehicle straight at the platform, scattering soldiers. Maria reached Marcus first. He was barely conscious, bleeding from wounds that would have killed a normal man twice over. She threw him over her shoulder and ran. David, limping badly, provided cover fire. Yuki was already preparing emergency treatment. They disappeared into the ruins before the Velthri could organize a response. The team escaped Washington through tunnels that the Resistance had mapped months earlier. They traveled for 2 days without stopping. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness. The plasma burns on his back and leg had cooked his flesh. He had lost too much blood. Yuki did everything she could. She was working with limited supplies and terrible conditions. 3 times during the journey, Marcus stopped breathing. 3 times Yuki brought him back. She told the others that he should be dead. His wounds were fatal. But somehow his heart kept beating. Somehow his lungs kept filling with air. It was as if his body refused to die before he saw his daughter again. They reached a resistance base in the mountains of Virginia. Real doctors were waiting with real equipment. Marcus went into surgery that lasted 14 hours. The doctors removed plasma residue from his tissue, repaired burned organs, and stitched together what was left of his back. When they finished, the lead surgeon said it was a miracle. He said no one should survive what Marcus had survived. For 2 months, Marcus lay in a hospital bed, recovering. Alina came to visit and told him what was happening in the world. The Velthari Empire was falling apart. Xyrith's death had broken the chain of command exactly as they had hoped. Sub-commanders across the planet issued contradictory orders. Some called for retreat to orbit. Others demanded brutal retaliation against human populations. Some tried to negotiate. Others went silent completely. The unified alien force had become a collection of confused, leaderless units. Humanity seized the opportunity. Coordinated uprisings erupted in every occupied city. Humans used weapons captured from dead soldiers and equipment built by scientists like Jin. The 3-second window was no longer a secret. Every resistance fighter knew how to exploit it. Velthari soldiers, who had seemed invincible, started falling one by one. Within 6 weeks, humanity had reclaimed half the planet. Major cities were liberated. Work camps were emptied. Prisoners were freed. The aliens retreated to fortified positions and waited for instructions that never came. Alina told Marcus that he was a symbol now. His face was painted on walls everywhere. His name was spoken like a prayer. Children who had never known freedom called him a hero. Adults who had given up hope said he had saved the human race. Marcus did not feel like a hero. He felt like a broken man who had gotten lucky. He felt like a father who had been away from his daughter for too long. He asked about Lily every day. Alina promised she was safe. She was still with Rosa in the shelter. She was waiting for her daddy to come home, the day Marcus was finally strong enough to travel. Alina arranged transport back to Detroit. The city had been liberated a month earlier. Humans controlled the streets again. Velthari bodies had been cleared away. Life was slowly returning to normal. Marcus walked into the shelter on his own legs. He was thin and scarred, walking with a limp he would have for the rest of his life. But he was alive. He had kept his promise. He had come back. Lily saw him first. She was playing with other children in the common area. She looked up and froze. For a moment, she just stared, as if she could not believe what she was seeing. Then she screamed and ran toward him. Marcus dropped to his knees and caught her in his arms. He held her so tight he thought he might never let go. She was crying and laughing at the same time. She was asking 100 questions. She was telling him she missed him. She was telling him she loved him. She was saying, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," over and over like a song. Marcus cried too. For the first time since Sarah died, he let himself feel everything. The grief and the fear and the pain and the hope, it all came out in tears that fell into his daughter's hair. He told her he loved her. He told her he would never leave her again. He told her everything was going to be okay. The war was not over. Velthari forces still controlled parts of the planet. Their fleet was still in orbit. Reinforcements could come from deep space at any time. There would be more fighting ahead. More sacrifice. More death. But something fundamental had changed. Humanity was no longer prey. They were no longer the primitive insects that Xyrith had mocked. They had proven that they could fight. They had proven that they could win. They had proven that underestimating humans was the greatest mistake any conqueror could make in the years that followed. The story of Marcus Cole spread beyond Earth. Other planets conquered by the Velthari heard about the human rebellion. They heard about the teacher who became a warrior. They heard about the father who killed an emperor. And slowly, quietly, they began to believe that freedom was possible for them too. Marcus never wanted to be a legend. He just wanted to protect his daughter. But sometimes ordinary people are called to do extraordinary things. Sometimes one act of courage can light a fire that burns across the stars. The aliens had mocked humanity. They had called humans weak, primitive, worthless. They had believed their conquest was complete, but they had forgotten something important. Something that lived in the heart of every human being. Something that could never be conquered or killed. Hope. And in the end, hope was enough to change everything.